Part 91. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 904. On the magic circle, the white light spots were beating, expanding, and contracting, getting brighter and brighter. And when its size and brightness were almost stable, Gretel was shocked to see that the 7 churches opposite all lit up with a flash of white light. The other side is going to use a big move, he couldn't help but raise his voice. Cyrilla, come and see. I saw it. Cyrilla turned her back to him and didn't look back. At some point, she had returned to her human form, rushed to the telescope, and was leaning on the tube to watch with pleasure. It's such a long piece. It's so long, such a long piece of white light. Gretel, come here and look, you can see it clearly here. Gretel stared at the magic circle and wanted to find a notebook to write it down. However, a brilliant white light had already shone into the cave. He subconsciously turned his head, then said oh and jumped up. Light. The vast light. From across the strait, from the top of Kalia city, and from the 6th city, white light rose up one after another. The white light connects and condenses, vaguely forming the shape of a building, both like a mountain and a palace. There was something faintly swaying above, like flying or running. Greet tried his best, but couldn't see clearly at all. However, the feeling of depression in my heart is getting heavier and heavier. Like dark clouds pressing over the city, even though the heavy rain has not fallen yet, people's chests are getting more and more stuffy. It takes a lot of effort to take a breath. Gretel, look, Cyrilla waved to him desperately. At the same time, he turned his body sideways and reluctantly opened half of his eyes, with a look on his face. I'll try to look at it for one more second before I come over. Greet smiled at her, stood on tiptoes, and walked past her towards the entrance of the cave. He added an eagle eye spell to himself and tried his best to see. It was unclear at first, but after looking for a while, the scene in front of me became clearer and clearer. It was as if there was a strange force that was pushing these scenes before his eyes and engraved them into his heart. He saw a mountain. A towering mountain made of white light. The mountain is divided into 7 levels. On the bottom layer are ordinary human figures, either farming, grazing, weaving, or running around. All in all, they are no different from believers in the world. The second level is also ordinary human beings. It's just that there is no longer work. Some people are copying books, some are wielding swords, some are singing and playing. Look at that movement, slow and leisurely, showing indescribable joy. Occasionally one of these people suddenly stops working and sprouts a pair of white wings on his back. He spread his wings and flew high into the sky, reaching the 3rd level. On the 3rd and 4th floors, up and down, there are angels with wings on their backs. The only difference is that those on the 3rd floor seem to be working, while those on the 4th floor are just singing hymns wholeheartedly. As they sang, white light flickered and fell like snowflakes. When it fell below, there were people below holding it with both hands filled with joy. The 5th floor is occupied by 4 winged angels, and the 6th floor is occupied by only a few 6-winged angels. Holding a sword with a bow on his back, a harp in his arms, or a book and scepter in his hands, he looks majestic and overlooks all directions. How many people are here? Gretel whispered. It's so far away that I can't see clearly. 7. There seems to be more than, could it be 9? But the doctrine has only been changed in the past 2 years. I'm afraid it's too late to add new angels, right? Before he finished muttering, he felt that the figure of the seraph was blurry and changing, and its wings were flickering, as if they were incomplete. Beyond the 7, the extra figures swayed as if they were out of contact. Gretel desperately tried to see more clearly, but his eyes were burning, and he was instantly stabbed to tears. He screamed and covered his eyes. Stingy, if you don't want to watch it, you won't watch it? As for that. He turned his palms inward and quickly threw healing spells at himself one by one. Finally my eyes got better. I looked up from between my fingers and saw a figure standing on the top of the mountain on the 7th floor. The figure seemed extremely small, so small that it only occupied a little bit of territory on the top of the mountain. It seemed extremely grand, so grand that when he stood up, the whole world was shaking. Thousands of rays of light, thousands of auspicious auras, a golden scale flowing on the churning sea waves, and the clouds around Leolean city glowed with splendor. What is this? Next to Gretel, Cyrilla lowered her voice subconsciously, as if she was afraid of disturbing the giant of light. Is it their god? Or what they said, that angel? Can he fight? If he punches out, who can catch it? Gretel didn't know the answer. All he knew was that when the giant of light stood up, everyone on the 7-story mountain fell to the ground. White light shone around, and the singing voice went straight to the sky. Holy, holy. The giant of light looked around. Then, he raised his palm and pointed faintly in the direction of Ostend. A ray of white light, slender, clean, seemingly harmless, just a beam of sunlight cast from the sky. However, when the shot hit the ground, the whole world seemed to shake. Greet's heart suddenly moved, and he rushed back to the magic circle to observe. The entire magic circle was occupied by the 7-layered light mountain, which occupied less than half of its area, and the other side of the strait was almost completely occupied. And Ostend, Ostend. The place where the light spot was before suddenly exploded. That brightness, that color, if Gretel were to mark it, he would mark a small mushroom cloud there. Or maybe it was completely raised. Greet looked at the marks on the map, the hill, and the facilities in the hill. Maybe all of them had disappeared and turned into a depression? Is there anyone here? Are there any of our people? Are there any of our magicians, or warriors? Gretel was worried. After the giant of light struck, he raised his hand again and pressed it down gently. Under the palm, white light puffed out, and a palm made of white light was vague, as if it was about to fly out. With this palm strike, it will hit the city of Ostend, right? Or a nearby rebel camp. Greet was anxious. Although when it comes to the final exchange of chess pieces, any chess piece can be exchanged, but the city of Ostend finally got the promise of the parliament and only raised troops at this time. Is it possible to save them? Is there any way to withstand or block the opponent's attack? Gretel's thoughts were racing. On the way here, the senior sister urgently threw various legendary spells to him, asking him to memorize them, and circulate them in his mind one by one. At that time, I only cared about rushing and asking my senior sister for advice. I just memorized these background information in a hasty manner. Now I just regret that I didn't memorize it in detail and didn't think it through. No, no, not even this. All the legendary spells of the protection system seem to be aimed at a single person, or at most a small group, to interrupt the attack of the light people. Do they have to rely on attacking with attack? Who's on first? Could it be a teacher? Just as he was thinking of this, Cyrilla suddenly exclaimed and pointed forward. Greet rushed over to take a look, and saw the towering mountain of light suddenly shaking like a reflection in the water, and the surrounding area began to blur and scatter. Layer by layer, they gradually collapsed, and what exploded at the same time was the roar from the opposite side that resounded throughout the world. Bitch. Huh. Did we succeed? Who is it? Which legend was it and what great magic was used? Greet stood on tiptoe, until her toes almost broke. She only regretted that she had never learned ballet and could not stand on her toes. Unfortunately, I still couldn't see anything. I could only hear a faint sound of laughter between heaven and earth. Hee hee. We. Ha 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 ha. The sound sounds like it is from the control system. Gretel muttered silently. And somewhere he couldn't see, the legend of the control system, MS Almeida, philosophers rose, wrapped up her students and rushed across the street with a smile. There are only a few dozen instruments left, lying everywhere outside Liulian City, still outputting tirelessly. Little Greet's research on brain waves is really good. By splitting various emotions into various brain waves, you can output them with high power. It can also be powered by electric motors. Dozens of them at a time. Let's go, these things can still work. Let them find it slowly. Haha, the most important thing about prayer, which is the basis of the great God's descending technique, is that everyone is united as one. We are the ones who are most afraid of us. Give us an encouragement here, a scare there, a temptation there, and I'll let you pray. Next time, we can join forces with those from the illusion department. For example, let's perform some hot dances in mid-air and match them with some sound effects or something. The mountain of light collapsed and the people of light disappeared. Gretel squinted his eyes and saw that on the magic array disc, the white light across the strait had almost disappeared, leaving only a faint remnant, like a paint disc that had been washed away by the flood and was not completely washed. And in this thin white light, a golden light suddenly burst out and rushed forward. They were extremely fast and fierce, getting closer and closer, and they were about to overlap on the magic array. Before Gretel could say oh, a thunderbolt suddenly streaked across the sky. This thunderbolt was sharp and powerful. It was just a blow, and the golden light suddenly broke away and escaped back to the city. The colorful light flew away without looking back, but after the thunderbolts flew across the sky, one after another, dense electric lights fell towards the city of Kalias like raindrops. Greet stood up suddenly. Dark clouds are pressing down on the city, and cumulonimbus clouds are rubbing against each other, which is originally pregnant with lightning and thunder, however, such dense lightning and such precise attack direction. Teacher, the teacher must be here. Decker. Do you want to die here? The other side roared again. Gretel stretched his ears hard, but could not hear any sound from his own side, and the teacher's clear and slightly mocking voice did not resound throughout the world. Only the lightning in the clouds was like a waterfall, falling down one after another, accompanied by all kinds of brilliance flashing randomly. The people in the church must have tried their best to attack the teacher, but the attack failed, or they couldn't lock on. Decker. With the roar, another mountain of light rose on the top of the cathedral. On the top of the mountain of light, the giant held a long sword and struck down with all his strength. Divine descending technique. Another divine descending technique. A divine descending spell was broken just now. Can they use the second one so quickly? Even if people are organized to pray, it should take some time to accumulate strength, right? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Get 50% off on new subscriptions today. New favorites receive 50% discount. The pursuit of reading also plummeted. The mood is very unpleasant. Fortunately, I only have to write 4,000 words tomorrow. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 905. It was obvious that the lightsaber that fell this time was inferior to the last time in terms of scale and strength. The mountain of light last time covered hundreds of miles and enveloped several churches. This time, the mountain of light only fell above the city of Kalias. The last time the giant of light stood up, it reached the sky and the earth, and it was difficult to breathe when looking at it from a distance. This time, the giant of light could at most make people say very high, and it didn't feel so oppressive. The most important thing is that the speed and flexibility of the lightsaber falling are not very good. For example, it's like hitting a fly with a wooden stick. Although it looks powerful, it can't catch up with the fly that changes direction flexibly. Even so, Gretel's heart was still in his throat. The person who was attacked just now was a magician whom I don't know which department. I don't know if I recognize him. I don't even know if he is there or not. The one who was attacked this time might be the teacher. The lightsaber slashed down, swung horizontally, and raised diagonally. Gretel held his breath and stared at the front of the lightsaber, as if he wanted to see a figure with fluttering clothes and dodging calmly from there. It's a pity that I can't see anything. If he were stronger, if he could go to the battlefield in person. The lightning rain is still falling. The lower it goes, the denser it gets, and the lower it gets, the more violent it becomes. Suddenly, there was a thunderbolt, rumbling over the head, and Gretel's heart skipped a beat. When he looked at it again, he saw golden lightning breaking through the clouds, cluster after cluster, as if it had struck directly into the city of Callias. Deckard. Above the clouds, there was another roar. Immediately afterwards, the lightsabers split, deformed, and intertwined into a cage of light, descending from the cloud sky and holding the entire Callias. Then, quickly gather. Outside the light cage, there are many light filaments swimming around, slashing horizontally and vertically, and exploding continuously. Obviously, even if you rush out of the light cage and encounter these light filaments, you will be hit hard. The lightning rain did not stop. It's just that it no longer condenses. It shoots east and west, rushing left and right, testing the direction of escape. However, every time I approach the outside of the light cage, there is always a light thread approaching to fill the position, vaguely threatening. Go from here and chop off a layer of your skin. Oh, run. Run. It'll be over when he closes it. Not only was Greet worried, but Cyrilla was also muttering beside her. When Greet heard her say it's over, he couldn't help baring his teeth, but he couldn't bear to glare at her. Cyrilla was also nervous, he knew it. At this moment, the electric light in the sky suddenly lit up and fell straight down. The next moment, a bolt of lightning shot up from the coast, winding around and filling the sky with great joy. I ran out, blah blah blah. Greet was instantly relieved. He murmured. Activated lightning. Activated lightning, a legendary spell of the evocation system. It can give life to a bolt of lightning, which can then effectively travel through the air, releasing lightning one after another, each of which can cause damage to the enemy. Of course, if it were to be discharged out of thin air, it would definitely have to borrow part of the power of the legendary mage. However, if there are cumulonimbus clouds at the scene, the ability of this activated lightning to control current is much stronger than ordinary magicians. As for the origin of this thing, just kidding, it would be strange if the Lord of Thunder did not have such an activated lightning that accompanied him all year round. What's even better is that activated lightning is not a human being, so it is much easier to run away than a human being. For example, it's really convenient to run a few long wires outside the city and put up a few lightning rods in the camp of the Dutch resistance army. Several magicians high-fived each other. He ran out so quickly. And there's no trace of elemental magic at all. Thank you to the wire and the guy who invented the wire. By the way, how fast do you think the activated lightning can run if it's inside the wire? Look at it just now. In just 1 second, it ran from outside the city into the sea. Let me tell you quietly, regarding the speed of lightning, someone has been measuring the speed of lightning at the top of Igor Peak, and then what? They haven't tested it yet. You've been talking about this for a long time. In any case, Gretel breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the thing that had been causing trouble inside was just an activated lightning bolt and had successfully escaped. But the light cage couldn't be touched around, so it could only be closed and returned to the state of the lightsaber. Whether it is visual inspection or observing the data on the magic array, it has shrunk by more than 1 circle compared to before. Gretel couldn't help but show a relaxed smile. Just in the middle of laughing, he suddenly stopped and froze in place. Fire! Scorching flames! Like a pillar of fire guided from the sun, it fell straight down and hit Callias, the top of the tallest and most majestic cathedral. Gretel took a deep breath, turned around instantly, and rushed towards the magic circle. Sure enough, the magic circle clearly displayed the type and level of the spell. Category, Evocation System, Flame Branch. Level, Legendary. There are also small words next to it: Scorching Flame Waterfall, Energy Flame Spell, Summoning a Pillar of Fire high into the sky to strike at the enemy. Is he really a teacher? This time, was it really the teacher who took action himself? The giant of light roared angrily, but he could not ignore it, so he had to hold the sword with both hands and swing it upward with all his strength. With one breath, the flames at the tip of the sword began to disintegrate. With the second breath, the sword body shattered. With the third breath, the scorching flames had already pressed against the hands holding the sword. If this continues, when the giant of light crumbles, it is conceivable that the city of Calais will fall into a sea of fire. Gretel held his breath and was moved by the sight. Is this the power of legend? Attack with all your strength. One person is enough to burn down an entire city. Even for a small town in this world, this power is amazing enough. Being hit on the head by this pillar of fire, there is no doubt that even if there is anything left in the city of Calais, nothing will be left of the cathedral in the center. The giant of light lowered his hands and waved upward vigorously. Following his movements, the 7-story heavenly mountain beneath him, his legs, armor, and even his body all turned into white light and rolled upward layer by layer. White light and flowing flames collide in the sky. I don't know what the principle of the glorious Holy Sea's great magic is, but it can wrap up the pillar of fire and quietly annihilate it layer by layer. Although it took a lot of effort, when the fire pillar fell into the light cloud, it actually didn't explode with a bang and a mushroom cloud. Pity. Greet sighed secretly. Without an explosion, the cathedral below cannot be destroyed, and another legendary spell is required. I don't know if another legend took over, or if the teacher took over alone. He was worried. The flowing flame waterfall has stopped, and in the sky outside Calais city, 3 figures standing side by side appeared in the sky. Facing them was the man of light who stood up again on the top of the cathedral, and the thunderbolt thrown by the man of light. Deckard. Die. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. New editions continue to plummet, subscriptions also continue to fall. Sang Xian, curled up into a ball. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 906. Gretel subconsciously took a step forward, opening his hands to help block the blow. Even if the teacher is a legendary mage, he is still a human being, and it is still very dangerous to receive lightning in his body. Lightning in nature can reach up to millions of volts, tens of millions of volts, or hundreds of millions of volts. I wonder how strong the lightning created by the Holy See is. As he stretched out his hand, he remembered that he was still separated from the battlefield by a strait. Even if he ran from the top of the mountain to the seaside, it would still be more than 10 miles away. They are far apart and beyond reach. Beside him, Sarah also jumped up. There was a loud crashing sound. It was unclear whether something was knocked down or something was broken. Gretel seemed to see a bright silver light in the corner of his eyes. Then, he saw the bunch of thunder getting smaller and smaller, until it disappeared into the teacher's palm and disappeared. Belluno, what do you think? A familiar voice sounded between heaven and earth. Although the tone seemed a little distorted due to the distance, the slow, mocking tone was clearly the teacher's. Use this level of thunder to deal with me, Lord of Thunder. Greet relaxed her shoulders and smiled secretly. That's right, the teacher is the Lord of Thunder. When it comes to playing with thunder and lightning, the entire evocation department, and even the entire magic council, if the teacher believes in second place, no one will dare to believe in first place. The people from the glorious Holy See obviously can't beat the teacher when playing thunder and lightning. The Cathedral of Callias and the clergy, headed by the Bishop of Cassino, have fallen into extreme anger. The most common and well-known power of the Lord of Glory is of course the shining sunshine, but the most threatening is thunder and lightning. And this legendary mage, his title is openly called Lord of Thunder. If it weren't for the Speaker of the Parliament standing in front of him, the Lord of Thunder would have been the first on the Church's wanted list, or in other words, the purification list. Every time you meet him in the wild, it is worthy of the Vatican to mobilize a few legends to fight to the death. And now, he actually dares to come in front of the main force of the Holy See, stand on the blockade of Hall Strait, and take action openly. Everyone, don't take action without authorization. Act as planned. Bishop Cassino ordered with suppressed anger, let's attack from the front to attract the attention of the heretics. The hymn is melodious, the light clouds are rolling, and the power gradually gathers. Just when Greed was holding his breath, waiting to see what kind of attack the other side would launch and how the teacher would respond, 4 beams of lightning came from the left and right at the same time. These 4 beams of lightning were emitted from the 4 cathedrals on the left and right of Callias at the same time. Passing through the sky, as soon as it appeared, it staggered and locked the Lord of Thunder. Before Gretel had time to blink, he felt a pair of bright white X-shapes burned into his retinas. It was extremely bright and thick, occupying the entire field of vision. For a moment, he couldn't even see the teacher's figure. This lightning is so strong. Just looking at the visual effects, they are much better than the previous one. Is that a feint attack? Greet didn't dare to blink, for fear of missing any detail, so he just threw a healing spell to himself. In his eagerness, he didn't have time to think about whether the healing spell could eliminate the retinal afterimage. Maybe it really worked, or maybe the lightning light was too strong and damaged the macular area under the eyes. In short, Gretel felt that his eyes went dark, and a huge darkness appeared. He blinked hard twice and looked carefully. Yes, what was blocking the front of Callias City was a black hole, or in other words, a black planet. The planet goes above the city and touches the ground below. It rotates slowly and is infinitely deep. 4 bolts of lightning fell on the planet, but they did not penetrate immediately. Instead, they stirred up a dense electrical grid, crackling and sending out tiny explosions. Beside Gretel, Sirrah took a small breath of air. Is this, a demi-plane? Gretel suddenly shuddered. In this way, this black planet is indeed a bit like the teacher's demi-plane, he has entered it more than once. It is boundless, topless, and filled with the power of lightning. Maybe, with the teacher's demi-plane, he can really catch these lightning bolts without any damage? Impossible. How could you take it? In the distance, from an unknown church to the right of Callias Cathedral, a high-pitched and frustrated voice came. In the demi-plane, a familiar, smiling voice replied leisurely. It is easy to understand the nature of lightning. Let me teach you one thing. Whether it is lightning created by magic or lightning controlled by you, the Lord of Glory, its power is the movement of electrons and the transfer of electric charges. Greed burst out laughing. Are the people of the glorious God sect going to be mad to death because of this popular science about the nature of lightning? However, looking at the shape and construction of the power grid covering the teacher's half-plane, it looks like his shielding protective suit, with a ground wire by the way. Well, if it is really made based on protective clothing, remember to ask for a gift when the teacher comes back. Greet relaxed a little, lowered his arms, and continued reading. The demi-plane rotated for a while before gradually converging. The silver light disappeared and the lightning disappeared. Some of it may have been introduced into the ground, and some may have been absorbed by the teacher's demi-plane. How does it feel to activate a divine spell to recharge the Lord of Thunder's demi-plane? Greet really wanted to interview the person opposite. However, it is a pity that people from the glorious Holy See, especially those from the Cathedral of Kalia City, will probably never have the opportunity to be interviewed again. With a bang, the entire church was lifted up out of thin air, and large swaths of the spire, bell tower, roof, and flower windows flew into the air. Under the church, a hemispherical light group bulges, expanding, expanding, expanding. There was a huge earthquake, and an unprecedented bright light shot out. "Get down!" Greet yelled subconsciously, closed his eyes, grabbed Sirara, and threw herself to the ground. However, he fell, and his left hand had already been pressed to the ground. His right hand was still hanging on Sirara's body, and his position did not change at all. Sirala stood there tall and motionless. Together with Gretel, they were hanging sideways in the air, with their eyes closed tightly and one hand on the ground. It was as embarrassing as it seemed. "Gretel, what's wrong with you?" the silver dragon girl asked softly. Greet struggled for a while, trying to get up, but it was difficult to exert force. The 5 fingers of his left hand could not support his whole body, and he wanted to pull down with his right hand, but he was afraid of hurting Sirala. Instead, Sirara chuckled, grabbed his arm, and lifted him up. Greet pulled twice in the air and stood up straight awkwardly. He raised his head and looked towards the opposite side. With just one glance, he froze there. What did he see? The number of follow-up subscriptions finally rose back to over 800, but the new additions are still very bleak, so I did something wrong. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of buy a book in the group. Book title, Elf, I Really Know the Power of Waveguide. Introduction. Researcher Sulugo came across with a mechanical canicon. What? Ryalu, whom he had raised for more than half a year, ran away with someone else? Did the other party take away Ryalu so that Ryalu could master the power of the waveguide? Was it for the sake of the country and the people? Sulugo looked calmly at Squirtle, who was rubbing the wave missile in the distance. It really knows how to guide the wave. Want me to help? Sorry, I don't accept it. The introduction is weak, but the author has already published excellent articles such as Elves from Scratch, Elves Are Coming to the World, and I Clearly Want to Be a Trainer. Book lovers who are short on books can read it. Keywords: Pokemon, 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 special. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 907. If what he saw after the strong light receded was a volcano, Gretel felt that he was completely mentally prepared. Volcanoes, there is nothing more reliable than this to destroy the foundation of the church. If what he saw was a slowly rising mass of magma, Greet felt that he would not be unable to accept it. After all, there is no need to make a big battle. It is a bit redundant to create a volcanic ash eruption and bury a city. If you see a mushroom cloud, this. Gretel felt that he would probably just rub his eyes and mumble, "It wasn't me, I didn't write out the mass energy equation." But what does he see now? One eye. A huge, huge, huge eye, with its lower end touching the ground and its upper end higher than the highest point of the church steeple. The perfectly shaped almond eyes have extremely long eyelashes. With a blink of an eye, the lower eyelashes swept across the ground of Callias. Greet felt that he seemed to hear a rumble in the city again, and buildings fell to the ground. This is not the evocation mage, this is not the path of the evocation mage, conjuration system, transformation system, or other systems. What the hell have you come up with? The eye is complete in shape and has a clear structure. Because it was so big, Gretel felt that he could even see the retina on the inner wall of the eyeball, as well as the blood vessels and macula on the retina through the cornea and lens. It's a pity that the screen cannot be recorded. Otherwise, such good material should be recorded and used as lecture materials for students. It's real, you don't need to use a slit lamp to shine it, you can see the fundus of your eyes with a pupil microscope, how rare it is. The eye blinked a second time, then a third time. Then, perhaps stimulated by the smoke rising from the city, as well as the flying spears, bell towers, and beams, Greet saw tears welling up crazily in his tear ducts. Crash, 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 a waterfall washes over the outside of the cornea. Then, maybe the tear duct was too late to accept it, or maybe the structure of this eye did not have a tear duct at all. The tears outside the big eyeball fell like a torrential rain. And the teardrops seemed to be gray-black. Gretel really didn't want to know what it felt like to be hit by such a big ball of tears. Maybe, it felt like there was a boom and the whole person entered the swimming pool. The big eyes blinked 2 or 3 times, then slowly turned and looked down. As soon as he turned around, he blinked hard again, and his eyelashes swept the floor wildly, sweeping away a pile of construction debris. Then, blazing light burst out from the pupils and directly hit the ruins of the church. Boom! The second explosion was filled with violently rising smoke clouds, rising into the sky. Really, your eyes will discharge? The corner of Greet's mouth twitched, feeling that the ability of these magicians to accomplish great things had exceeded his ability to complain. As for what race this big eyeball belongs to, what world it is, what level it is, and what its specific abilities are, I can only wait until I get back and ask the teacher again. Speaking of the teacher's figure has disappeared. I don't know if he returned directly after completing the battle, or if he hid somewhere. Instead, a group of people flew up densely around Kalia City, like a hornet's nest being poked. White lights crisscrossed, and sword energy crisscrossed. The group of people, like Don Quixote rushing towards the windmill, fearlessly rushed towards the big eyeball. Several surrounding churches also exerted their greatest strength and tried their best to support their comrades with divine magic. Holy light! Holy light! Holy light! Like a knife or a spear, like a sword or a halberd, shoot at the big eyeball that rotates left and right and keeps blinking. If Gretel had been there, he would have really wanted to tell them not to do this. Even if they wanted to attack, don't use light attack magic. That big eyeball is so big that the surface of the eyeball, even the cornea, occupies a huge area and is hugely thick. A beam of white light, whether it is directed straight or obliquely, will be partially reflected or refracted. The reflected and refracted light is scattered by the cornea, anterior chamber, and possibly the lens. It disperses instantly, forming a 7-color rainbow light. The battle area in front of the big eyeball was painted from holy white to a colorful disco. If Greet remembers correctly, among the magics, there is a series of rainbow light series magics. Scattered in the protection system, the spell system, and of course the most numerous ones are the plastic energy systems, iridescent rays, iridescent bursts, iridescent halos, iridescent jets, all the way to the 9-ring iridescent orb. And rainbow light magic, the kind of magic that is similar to a lottery effect and is randomly hit by a spell effect. A long time ago, when Archmage Carlyle was teaching him, he once said very sadly, "Promise me, I'll see how far this thing can run and how fast it can run. It's not necessary. Don't mess with it, it's much more troublesome than other magics of the same level." Greet was convinced. Therefore, when he saw the figures wrapped in white light rushing up one after another, and then being painted into colorful colors by the rainbow light, he couldn't help but pay them high respect. Of course, even if it is painted in colorful colors, it is better than facing big eyes directly. The light emitted by that eye is like thunder. If hit head-on, the person will melt silently into the light. Those long eyelashes were probably thicker than beams. When hit, they immediately rolled and fell to the ground. The big tears flowing out of the eyes, once hit and wrapped, The whole person is like a small insect in amber. There is no other option except falling down together. The priests of the Lord of Radiance fought desperately. Kalia city is the center point of the 7 link cities and the core of the magic chain. If it is destroyed, the great magic array will be over. Of course, in addition to focusing on the big eyes, some people also find other ways. Greed saw that the city closest to Ostend, which seemed to be called Dia City, had a light spot flying from it, heading straight for Ostend. The rating given by the magic circle is not high, its strength is only 8 rings, but there are at least 10 or more light spots scattered across the stars. Greed frowned slightly. Are there so many masters in the Star Castle in Ostend City? Are there any experts above level 17 taking charge? I seem to remember that the Earl didn't look that strong, so he wanted the Parliament to take over? How many people did the council send? Then, a dreamlike and colorful light veil rose above the Star Castle. Gretel struggled to turn the telescope around, adjust the focus, and aim it at the center of the light gauze. I saw Senior Sister Philby stepping into the void, standing leisurely on the spot, surrounded by light like shooting stars. You dare to come here with only a few swordsmen? Get out. She raised her hand and pointed, and dozens of streams of light shot out from her side, heading straight for the white light on the opposite side. Greed turned the telescope quickly, but he didn't have time to keep up with the speed of the light spot. He only saw the sky filled with blood mist, and people were falling like dumplings from the opposite side. Turning back the telescope, electric arcs were flying around the senior sister, and a flash of white light was shooting out from her fingertips. It's really, the lightning is beating on your fingertips. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to bookfriend 854721, sorry, there is an asterisk in the backend display, for the 100 book coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 908. If Gretel was not dozens of miles away but at the scene, he might have hugged the senior sister's thigh tightly and shouted, "The electric light dancing on your fingertips." Of course, considering that he was not a two-dimensional controller in his previous life, and he didn't know whose words of support came from him, probably even if he saw the heroic appearance of his senior sister, he would only be able to say the first half of the sentence at most. The second half of the sentence. What's the second half of the sentence? At this moment, it was Archmage Philby who stepped into the void with a smile on her face. The 16th level Archmage turned his gaze sideways, glanced across the strait, and said with nostalgia, "The things little Greed has made are really useful. Electricity, magnetism, and electromagnetic conversion. Once this joint is broken, the two powers of electricity and magnetism can be used in endless tricks in the hands of this Archmage who specializes in thunder and lightning. For example, drive current, convert it into a magnetic field, and shoot something out. As long as the current is strong enough and the magnetic field converted is strong enough, a high enough speed can be achieved. And the material of the thing that was shot out? Shape. Size. How should it be made to achieve the best attack effect? After the Archmage gave an order, naturally there were disciples and grandsons below, working hard to run errands. Drawing drawings, proposing projects, applying for budgets, working with mages from the transformation department to make various things, and testing them diligently. Bronze pellets, iron pellets, fine gold pellets. Copper coins, silver coins, gold coins. Ordinary arrows, three-sided arrows, elongated three-sided arrows, steel needles with tail fins. Finally, when Archmage Philby went to the battlefield, she carried a pocket full of palm-long steel spikes. Made of fine steel inside and plated with fine gold on the outside, it gives it enough hardness to prevent it from melting when propelled at high speed. The sashimi is slender and connected to a triangular tail wing at the back, bringing sufficient stability. It is heavy in the hand, but not too heavy. It reaches the greatest balance between lethality and energy consumption. A steel thorn is shot out and arrives instantly within 200 meters. It can penetrate 3 layers of magic defense and then penetrate the common armor of the Sky Knight. The steel penetrates the body, rolls, and tears, instantly causing extremely powerful damage. So now, Archmage Philby stands in the void, not moving his hands or raising his feet. Steel spikes flew out like rain, and a large area of the heavenly knights and high-level magicians who rushed toward her fell with a crash. The key is, this spell is super labor-saving, the senior sister said with a smile on her lips. Before changing, if you want to defeat so many people in one go, the magic power consumed must be at least 5 times that of this wave. Of course, the premise is that you have to hit it accurately. According to her, to hit a target 200 meters away, it only takes about 10 rounds, gathered into a cluster, to ensure hitting a human-sized target. Those disciples under her sect, practicing this spell, really let 100 flowers blossom. The worst accuracy can miss a target 200 meters away by 50 meters. Let little Greed practice later. Well, he is best at fine operations. He should be able to practice this magic well. The senior sister was able to block a large number of masters by herself and a handful of steel thorns. In the camp, Archmage Baebo looked up at his junior sister in the distance, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Looks like I don't need to take action. Hey, the assistant teacher made such a big fireball, it's very tiring, not good. In the far distance, a magical storm tore through the sky and exploded. Archmage Baebo flew up urgently and only managed to catch his junior sister, but was unable to stabilize his body in the storm. The 2 brothers and sisters rolled around and were swept away into the distance in the magic storm. In the peripheral vision, large numbers of figures wearing armor, sacrificial robes, and mage robes flew out in all directions. In order to kill that big eyeball, the Holy See tried its best. The 2 cities on the left and the 2 cities on the right spare no effort to pour out their magic. The holy bells in the city struck and resounded throughout the city. High-ranking clergymen flew into the air. The voices of prayers from bishops, priests, deacons, acolytes, and the people under their rule went up to the sky. The great Lord of glory. You are the beginning of everything, you are the creator of all things. You are 10,001, you are the beginning and the end. Our lives belong to you, our souls belong to you, everything we have belongs to you. In the sound of prayer, white light gradually surged up like a mountain. Even without the central city of Callias and the divine magic array of the Solace Cathedral, the other 4 cities still summoned a heavenly mountain of astonishing scale, covering hundreds of miles. As for the magicians in Callias city, except for a few warriors who flew up in front and desperately attacked the big-eyed warriors, the rest of them were also kneeling on the ground and praying hard. Although there were no people praying together, more than a dozen middle to high-level magicians were united in their minds, and the power they exerted was extremely astonishing. At the end of the first prayer, a small angel shadow appeared above the head of Bishop Casino. Thump, 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 the magicians fell down one after another, and their breath disappeared. And the angel's shadow above the head of Bishop Casino is getting bigger, brighter, and more solid. From 2 wings to 4 wings, from 4 wings to 6 wings, it is as if the souls and lives of the magicians have been filled into the angels. Finally, there was a loud bang above the head of the Holy See of Casino, the skull exploded and the brains splattered. A faint light and shadow fell into the angel's shadow. The angel raised his head, glanced upward slightly, opened his 6 wings, and flew straight upward. He plunged straight into the mountains of heaven. Then, the 100-mile radius of Heaven Mountain shrank smaller and smaller, as if all the holy power was poured into the body of the seraph. These changes take a long time to talk about, but it doesn't take long to actually be completed. Archmage Philby has just finished fighting here, and Heaven Mountain has been completely sucked out. The wings of light behind the angel and the holy sword in his hand are also too bright to be seen. He glanced down, raised the holy sword, aimed it at the big eyeball, and rushed down. The small, 1-person tall seraphim, with his sword, penetrated the pupil of the big eyeball, and went straight into the center of the eyeball. Then, boom! There was a loud earthquake. Angel, big eyes, nothing left. The violent elemental storm swept across all directions, and the wind pillar reached the sky and the earth, rotating at high speed. Even the dark clouds and passing birds were twisted into a ball by the hurricane. The magicians, no one could care about anyone for a while. Including the legendary mage and his disciples who had previously concealed themselves, tore apart the space near Kalias, and summoned Big Eyes, they were all thrown out uncontrollably. Towards the coast, inland, towards Ostend, towards Liulianken. In the swirling wind, no one can control the direction of their flight, and no one can even control their rolling body. Gretel suddenly took a step forward, his face pale. Senior sister, senior sister. Senior sister is still there. Such a violent vortex, just now, he could clearly see that senior brother Baebo rushed up to catch senior sister, and then they were swept out together. Cyrilla. At this moment, Greet could only cast expectant eyes on the silver dragon girl beside him. Cyrilla, can you help save someone? The siege of Ostend is finally over, so tiring. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 909. The huge silver dragon flapped its wings. The silver dragon's powerful wings flapped, and plunged into the magic storm. In the violent whirlpool, even high-level mage can't stabilize his body. Only the dragon's strong body and huge self-weight can withstand such airflow and fly over steadily. Gretel stood at the door of the cave, looking up at the sky, watching Cyrilla flutter away. He clasped his hands tightly together, his nails turning white. Cyrilla, I'm sorry for putting you in danger. The young magician murmured. Whenever I have a little bit of power, I will rush forward by myself, but I really have no choice. He watched Cyrilla fly higher and higher, farther and farther. Suddenly it folded its wings, dived, opened its wings again, and steadily caught a small black dot, then plunged into the storm. Don't be reckless, cooperate well with the magicians, as long as they can have a platform to cast spells stably, they are still very strong. Greet murmured. Then, he turned around decisively, walked back to the cave, and began to complete his part. Put away the telescope. Put away the observation circle. The shielding array will not be put away for the time being. Greet thought for a while, walked out of the cave, grabbed a weed and concentrated for a moment, and spawned a large number of grass seeds. Turn around, raise your hand, and wave towards the cave. After a while, the dry and flat cave was densely covered with weeds. This way they won't be able to find it. Gretel muttered under his breath and walked back to the cave. The rustling grass made way for him and opened a passage, allowing him to put away the shielding array and walk away. Walk. Head inland. The faster you go, the better, and the further you go, the better. As long as the enemy still has some strength left, as long as he sees the flying silver dragon, he will definitely come here to investigate. Moreover, the level of the enemies who come to investigate is definitely not low. As Greet walked, he flipped his hands and covered himself with magic shields layer by layer. After setting up the shield, he took out all the magic equipment and hung them up one by one. After everything was done and he had reached the edge of the cliff, he gathered himself together, looked back at the storm in the distance one last time, launched his flying technique, and jumped out. Ah 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 ah. About to hit the mountain. About to hit the mountain. The powerful aftermath of the magic storm, combined with the unstable airflow in the mountains, is it so difficult to deal with it? Why is it so difficult? Greco stretched out his arms and fluttered vigorously. Pulling up, turning, making an emergency stop, after a long time, he twisted and threw himself on the tree tops, not daring to fly again no matter what. If I don't practice normally, I can't hold the Buddha's feet temporarily, forget it, let's run underground, phantom pony. The black magic horse quietly appeared. Greet got on the horse, buried his head in the grey mane of the phantom colt, and pushed hard. Run. Phantom pony, run inland. Along the hillside, along the valley, run as fast as possible, as far as possible dash. The phantom pony let go of its hooves and ran at full speed. The phantom pony summoned by a level 8 mage can already adapt to all land terrains, hillsides, woodlands, sandy areas, muddy areas, and swamps, and can run without any difficulty or slowdown. Half virtual and half real, smoke-like hooves stepped on the ground, silently, leading Gretel to run into the distance. A few hills away, 2 men in brown clothes leaned against a tree trunk and raised their heads. The target is moving. It's been relocked. The fluctuation of the 3-ring magic is slightly higher in intensity. It should not be far from where the dragon flew up. It should be a valuable target, and judging from the strength of the spell, it should be a target we can defeat. Both are members of the Holy Knights, a 9th level bishop and a 12th level swordsman. Space fluctuations were heard from outside Ostend, and they were sent to the other side of the strait to search hard to see if there was a large-scale gathering of high-end combat power from the Kingdom of Kent. After searching hard for 2 days, nothing was found. Instead, they witnessed a legendary battle and a big explosion. Anyone with eyes could see that in this wave, the Holy See suffered a tragic defeat and suffered a loss of blood. The city of Callias was destroyed. The magic chain of the 7 Liancheng city was completely broken. Everyone who is still alive will face accountability from the Glory Holy City, and this accountability, with a high probability, will be conducted by the Inquisition. They had to do something. In order not to be caught in the dark prison of the tribunal, they must produce valuable results. The target is far away from us. The shorter, thinner man rotated the magic compass and stared closely at the light spot on the compass. 4 miles, 4.5 miles, he keeps moving. It's not very fast, Stephen, we can catch up with him. He is running inland, almost in a straight line. Another tall man pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword and looked at the compass. We can block him. Callie, let's take a slight detour and cut in front of him. Walk. Walk. Callie murmured a few prayers, and then a layer of white light appeared on himself and his companions. He pounced forward, grabbed the strap of Stephen's backpack, and clung to it lightly. And Stephen lowered his head, bent his knees, and lunged forward. A deep footprint appeared in the area, and he rushed to more than 10 meters away with the sound of wind. Quick! Speed up! We'd better get in front of him, and then set up an ambush to catch him by surprise. A well-prepared magician is much harder to beat than an unsuspecting magician. The 12th level swordsman ran with all his strength, and his speed was much faster than that of a galloping horse. You can run along the steep hillside at will, and you can skip over the secluded mountain stream in one jump. On the magical compass, the 2 light spots kept moving. Soon, looking from the compass, they were about to merge together. We're almost catching up, we're almost catching up, be careful and stay hidden. Stop the noise. Go to the front, find a suitable terrain to ambush, and prepare to take action. Callie was lying in the forest with his sword, and Stephen was half kneeling behind him, muttering a prayer. On the compass they carried, an increasingly bright spot of light was moving rapidly in the direction of the two of them. The speed of the phantom horse is faster than that of ordinary horses. What's more rare is that it is stable. It can walk on sloping hillsides and rugged creeks with ease. And this gave Gretel more room. He closed his eyes, leaned on the horse, and tried his best to expand his perception. Listen to the blowing of the wind, the flow of the water, and resonate with the surrounding weeds, trees, birds, and animals. Which is the nearest and safest way to go inland? Are there any dangers nearby? Are there any spies from the glorious Holy See? Are there any hostile beings that shouldn't be there? The results of the special training that had been beaten by old Morgan for several months finally appeared. The perception of the 8th level nature priest unfolded, and the whole nature resonated. The woods, shrubs, and weeds all showed him the way. Go here. Go here. Don't turn left. Don't turn left. There is a malicious aura on the left. 2, very strong, very close. Greet suddenly opened her eyes. Without saying a word, he reached back and took out a row of test tubes, holding them between his fingers. Concentrate slightly and adjust the spell configuration. Boom. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to bookfriend 854721, sorry, there is an asterisk in the backend display, for the 100 book coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 910. Boom. The violent fireball flew out at high speed. The 4th level pyrotechnic, double enhancement, is followed by an ice wall reinforced with liquid nitrogen. The fireball exploded and turned into pure white flames. The hemispherical ice wall immediately enveloped it and was quickly turned into mist. However, the flames that hit the ice wall have turned back, squeezing inward, boiling and raging. The attack power of the 5th level high level, close to the 6th level, is completely impossible to resist with the physical body alone, and even if you rely on the defense of magic and divine magic, such an attack cannot be received in a hurry. The two attackers yelled in horror. Swordsman Kali swung his long sword, stimulating the sword energy and weaving an airtight network of light in front of him. However, the sword energy that can usually cut through the 3rd level fireball technique with one shot was woven into a web of light, but it was suppressed in an instant. Bishop Stephen prayed in a low voice, pushed forward with both hands, and dropped a layer of light on the two of them. However, with a slight flick of the white fire, the mask immediately shattered, like ice on a spring day, or like flames licking through window paper. No. Not at all. I've met a master. Who is this magician? So strong. A 9th level bishop and a 12th level swordsman felt a chill in their hearts at the same time. Kali subconsciously took a step back, trying to cover himself with his body and open an escape path for his companions. He is a warrior, and it has always been his duty to protect the priests. However, Bishop Stephen's reaction was faster. He jumped forward, whispered and hurriedly said two short words. Law, sacrifice. With a bang, blood exploded in the air, blocking the raging white fire for just a moment. What exploded together with the white fire was a much thicker white light, covering the swordsman with a layer of armor. The bishop's headless body fell weakly and hit the swordsman's back, as if he had spoken the last word with his life. Escape! Escape! Kali stood up with his sword drawn. The sword light flashes across the sky. This level 12 great swordsman has unleashed his life strength to the extreme. The sword energy opened a path outside, and the holy light left by his partner enveloped his whole body. He turned sideways and kicked out with all his strength. Amidst the burning stench, he felt his right hand lose feeling, then his right forearm, right upper arm, before losing his right shoulder. He finally rushed out of the flames, stood up with his left hand, and cut his right shoulder. Kala. The front half of the right arm was burned to ashes, and the back half was only a skeleton. It was cut off by Kali's left palm and held firmly in his hand. Without thinking, the swordsman stepped on the ground and charged at full speed. The strong wind roared in my ears, and the trees rolled back in my field of vision. Kali clenched the humerus of his right arm with his left hand, and his whole body turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed forward. Closer, closer, the mage's frightened face is already so close, just one sword can pierce his throat. Click. The bone sword, or rather the right arm humerus of this level 12 holy swordsman, hit the invisible magic barrier. Cracking, spiderweb-like cracks spread from the point of impact. The level 4 force field barrier took this full blow and finally disappeared without a trace. However, in this gap, 2 more barriers rose from the ground. One is still a force field barrier, firmly protecting the owner in the middle, the other is radiant lightning, forming an airtight circle outside the force field barrier. From within the barrier, the magician's voice came. Drop your weapons. Surrender. Don't even think about it. Kali coughed up a mouthful of blood. He held his arm bones, slowly raised them, and pointed forward. The warrior's bones, which have been tempered for thousands of times, can smoothly penetrate the power, sometimes even stronger than a long sword. With one grip, the sword light was already spitting out. You are the one who should surrender. I am a level 12 swordsman, what level are you at? I saw your face just now, Gretel Nordmark, you are only an 8th level mage on the Vatican's wanted list, right? So what? Gretel had recovered from his nervousness and was thinking quickly about how to fight next. It's not okay to throw another big fireball. If the distance is too close, he himself will be unlucky. What other magic is powerful enough to defeat a level 12 great swordsman? Level 8 has already beaten you like this. Guess how many more hits you can take, Gretel raised his voice. How many shields can you break? Flame shield, radiant shield, fire wall, ice wall, how many can you withstand? This is the kingdom of Kent, my companion is coming soon. There was a loud bang. On the force field barrier behind it, there were threads and cracks. Greet suddenly turned back, but the swordsman had already retreated quickly, with lightning jumping around his body. His face was charred and his limbs were twitching. Ice wall technique. Gretel threw down another shield with his backhand. This time, the hemispherical ice wall roared continuously and received 5 or 6 blows at once. The radiant shield outside has been completely destroyed by Gretel's elemental induction. That does not work. It is definitely not possible to be on the defensive all the time. If you defend for a long time, you will lose. He will be dead as long as he takes a heavy hit, but if he attacks. Greet frowned. Even with all his mental power, he couldn't lock onto the swordsman. Too fast. Too fast. It was really too fast. Looking forward and suddenly behind, the whole person was like a whirlwind, spinning around itself, holding out a sword from time to time. Gretel finally saw him in his mental power and wanted to attack, but he rushed out again. What to do? How to hit him? Greet built a force field barrier for himself, knelt down on one knee and pressed the ground with one hand. The spiritual power unfolds and calls out to the surrounding mountains and forests. Help me see him. Point me to his location. The leaves rustle and the mountain breeze hums. The whole nature is responding to him and showing him the position of the other party. However, the swordsman's speed was still too fast. Gretel tried several times, including lightning beams, missile storms, and sonic balls, but none of them could hit the opponent. Do you want me to use teleportation to increase the distance and fight again? However, the time it takes to teleport, open the shield, and then attack is enough for the opponent to catch up, right? Is there any instant spell that can kill him in one go? Greet's thoughts changed rapidly. Finally gritted his teeth, took out a test tube, and held it at his fingertips. Mountain forest. Nature. Show me his direction. It only takes a moment to entangle him. That familiar bright spot appeared in his mental energy. The barrier shook heavily, and at the moment when it was about to be broken, Greet held the test tube and cast the spell with all his strength. Potassium chloride. Superior. The moment the magic burst out, Kali's whole body was shaken, his muscles, bones, and internal organs were all in pain, and he almost dropped the bone sword in his hand. His legs weakened, he almost fell to his knees, and flew back with his last breath. Inside the barrier, Greet let go of the test tube, unable to hide his disappointment. Pity. His mental power still cannot lock the opponent's heart, nor can it completely break through the opponent's natural protection. The effect of the potassium ion infusion just now was really bad. Is there any other way? What other way is there, to kill that guy? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 911. Bang thong, thunk thong. Gretel's heart beat hard against his chest. A little bit, a little bit. If he didn't have a solid anatomy foundation, if he hadn't done many thoracic surgeries himself, he would almost think that his heart had hit the sternum. This is of course impossible, just like the swordsman outside is still attacking with all his strength and has no intention of falling. The barrier vibrates, making a roar almost every second, and it takes at least 20 to 30 seconds for the human blood to circulate once. In other words, even if the concentration of potassium ions he injects into the opponent's body has reached a lethal dose, it may take 20 to 30 seconds to flow to the heart and cause heart problems. And what if the injection volume is not enough? What if during the circulation process, after layers of filtration, some potassium ions are trapped and fail to reach the heart? In short, we have to think of another way, a more effective and faster way. Gretel put another layer of ice wall on herself. The ice wall reinforced with liquid nitrogen is his most effective defensive spell at present, and it can resist for about 5 or 6 seconds. Set a layer of flame shield 1 meter away from the ice wall. At this distance, the radiation damage of the fire wall cannot melt the ice wall. If the enemy wants to attack the ice wall, he will definitely suffer fire damage first. And then, boom. Bang bang. Bang bang bang. The soldiers outside are attacking despite the damage. Every time it hit the ice wall, it was like a giant hammer hitting the bronze bell, making Greet dizzy inside the bell shell. Never compete with soldiers for physical strength, old Morgan once said, never compete with them for physical strength. Your mental power is limited, and the number of spells you can cast is limited, but the number of times the warriors can launch attacks is countless times more than the number of spells you can cast in a day. Attack! Attack! The defensive shield only gives you a chance. Your real way to win is to attack. But, how to attack, how to tear apart the opponent's defense, penetrate the armor formed by the warrior's boiling blood, and strike a decisive blow. Boom! Boom! The ice wall is about to break again. Greet gritted his teeth, took out another bottle of liquid nitrogen, adjusted the spell configuration, and reinforced the ice wall. Then raise your hand, raise it, and flip it. Fire shield. Fire shield. Fire shield. I'll let you kill me. I'll let you cut 3 levels in a row. I can't roast you to death. After 3 consecutive layers of shields were set up, Gretel breathed a sigh of relief. In the mental induction, a figure came and went quickly, and the blazing light on his body was boiling and raging, as fierce as burning. Only when passing through the flame shield, the light converges slightly, or strengthens in certain locations and weakens in others. Good chance. This moment is the best opportunity to attack. Gretel was cruel, held his breath and concentrated, and mobilized the spell configuration. This time, what he called up was the spell configuration of DC Cardioversion, electric defibrillation. When he advanced from level 7 to level 8, he imprinted the spell into the meditation environment, and with the help of the infusion of world will during the advancement, he received a wave of great strengthening. Faster startup, higher output limit, and easier adjustment. DC cardioversion, electric defibrillation, and discharge are synchronized with the R wave of the electrocardiogram, which can achieve defibrillation while avoiding the ventricular vulnerability period. However, when the ventricle is discharged during the period of vulnerability, that is, 20 to 30 milliseconds before the peak of the T wave, there is a high probability that ventricular fibrillation can be caused directly. Increase the output limit to the highest value. Adjust the discharge time to the vulnerable period. Lock the enemy with his mental power, and at the moment when he breaks into the last layer of flame shield and his body freezes, he throws out the probe and measures the electrocardiogram. Put. There was an explosion, and the figure that had been struggling to attack just now lost control of its movements and hit the ice wall. Then it slipped hard. His limbs were twitching unconsciously, but there was no sign of getting up. Ventricular fibrillation is the most serious fatal arrhythmia, with a frequency between 250–600 beats per minute. The result is that the heart fails to pump blood, and heart sounds and pulses disappear, leading to loss of consciousness, convulsions, respiratory arrest, and even death. This guy is dead. Greet breathed a sigh of relief. Still not daring to be careless, he commanded the surrounding flame shields to close and deform, wrapping the man in the middle and burning him wildly. Then command the ice wall to deform and flip over, forming a giant bowl on the flame shield. Then, he used teleportation to distance himself, opened his shield, took out 2 test tubes and clamped them between his fingertips, and waved away the ice wall. Pyroblast. Boom. Pure white flames engulfed everything. After the explosion ended, Greet waited for a while, but there was no movement at the center point for a long time. He put on another layer of shield for himself, summoned the strong wind to blow away the smoke, dust, and mist, and threw a mystical eye over to observe carefully. There was a big hole in the ground. The soil at the bottom of the pit is compact and has a faint texture like obsidian and glass. It has obviously been roughly crushed by high temperature and high pressure. And in the center of the pit, there are no bodies. There is no complete human form. In the charred blackness, there were only a few scattered bones that proved the existence of the owner, half a skull, a hip bone, and a faintly golden arm. From the humerus, to the radius and ulna, to the metacarpals and phalanges. The 5 fingers were drawn inward, tightly holding the other humerus, which was also pale golden, and never let go even until death. Gretel was stunned. He counted all the bones in the arm several times from top to bottom and then from bottom to top. 14 phalanges, 5 metacarpals, 8 carpal bones, radius, ulna, humerus, plus an extra humerus. 30, 31, count again, humerus, ulna, radius, 8 carpal bones, 5 metacarpal bones, 14 phalanges, 30, add another humerus, 31. With a plop, Greet fell to the ground, with cold sweat dripping from his palms and back. It's over. It is finally over. He successfully survived the attacks of a priest of unknown level and a level 12 swordsman, and successfully counterattacked. Oh, maybe it wasn't that smooth, but he successfully killed the opponent after all. I, Gretel, am also a master who can counterattack 1-on-1, no, 1-on-2. Greet grinned with difficulty, trying to make himself smile, but his heart became heavier and heavier. If he could, if possible, he wouldn't want to kill anyone, let alone use medical means to kill people. but sometimes there is really no way. If I don't kill people, people will kill me. Forget it. We are not out of danger yet, we need to reflect, feel sad, and think philosophically until we are in a safe place. Gretel forced himself to cheer up and put away the remains of the swordsman. Summon a phantom pony again, check the direction, and run inland without looking back. Run, run, run. I don't know how long I ran or how far I ran. I ran until the wind blew loudly above my head, and a heavy shadow covered the sky and pressed down. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @bookfriend 202220402161251387 for the reward of 5,000 starting coins. Thanks to for the 1,500 starting coins. Thanks to @bookfriend 202205131928475569 for the 500 starting coin reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 912. Greet was not nervous when the shadow came down. The wind, the biting mountain wind, the wind blowing through the treetops, had already told him. Something extremely large and powerful, flew over at extremely fast speeds from behind him, from where the salty wind blew. Who else could it be? Greet even had time to tidy up her appearance. Well, your hair shouldn't be too messy. The grass blades on your front are quickly brushed off. Are your knees and trouser legs stained with dust? Let's do some quick cleaning. Of course, various defensive spells cannot be forgotten. High mage armor, put it on, remote protection, put it on, force field barrier, get ready. If not for anything else, just because what if Cyrilla crushes him when she rushes down? Even if it doesn't crush him, the flowers, plants, and surrounding trees, and then fall down and hit him, he will still be miserable. The wind was heavy. Greet's hair, clothes, and the surrounding leaves were all swaying wildly. The dust and pebbles thrown up by the horse's hooves were directly picked up by the strong wind, and even flew in front of the horse. Gretel! Above the head, crisp, bright shouts fell happily. Gretel raised his head in response. In his field of vision, a huge shadow swooped down and disappeared in a flash. I'm here. Fluttering and swaying, the silver dragon turned into a girl at the last moment, using the feather falling technique to offset the dive speed, and gently tapped the phantom colt's back with its toes. Gretel rolled her eyes at an angle she couldn't see. Cyrilla, don't rush so fiercely next time, what if you don't have time to change back? Hee, I saw you brushed your armor, the silver dragon girl said confidently. The high mage's armor prevents pressure and long-range projectiles. That ink pen of yours, Gretel, at least has a force field barrier, right? It must be fine. Cough. An unbearable cough sounded from above. Gretel suddenly turned around, quickly reined in the phantom horse, and bowed his head respectfully. I was a little confused at the moment and didn't know whether to cancel the mount. Teacher. The teacher, senior brother, and senior sister were floating in the sky together, looking at him. The Lord of Thunder was expressionless, senior brother Birbo's face was a little dark, and as for senior sister, she was winking at him desperately from an angle that senior brother could not see. Senior sister, what do you want to say? Without telepathy, I can't get it. Greet quickly turned his brain, but finally did not cancel the phantom pony, lest the teacher scold him for wasting magic again. He jumped off the horse, raised his face, respectfully, and said hello warmly. Teacher. Senior brothers and sisters. You are all here. Can we not come? Archmage Baebo's face was still very ugly, and his bald head was covered with a layer of blackness in the sun. "You've sent Cyrilla out, can't we come quickly?" "Well." Gretel shrunk his neck and glanced at Cyrilla secretly. The silver dragon girl held her head high and her face looked as proud as possible. Greet sighed slightly. "Cyrilla, are you okay? Are you not in danger?" "Of course I'm fine," the silver dragon girl raised her chin as hard as she could. The next moment, the Lord of Thunder spoke softly. "She charged into the storm and rescued more than one mage in danger. Brave girl. That's hum. Sarah raised her head even higher. The Lord of Thunder continued. "But it's a bit reckless to let her leave your side, Gretel. I saw that you moved your position and a fight broke out." Gretel breathed a secret sigh of relief. He quickly reported. "That's right, the movement of Cyrilla flying out was too obvious. I felt that I couldn't stay where I was, so I walked all the way inland." The Lord of Thunder listened silently. He returned to his expressionless look, but when Greet talked about the location of the first battle, he flicked out a huge blanket. Greet climbed up very wisely. The flying carpet floated over the forest tops, carrying a group of 5 people, flying silently back and forth, pointing accurately to the location where the first battle took place. "Teacher, have you been watching from the sky?" Greet asked politely. The Lord of Thunder stared forward, motionless, as if he had not heard. But senior brother Baebo replied a little impatiently. "A blind man can't see such a big movement. Use your brain." "Well." Greet winced again. Diagonally opposite, the senior sister smiled gently. "Little Gretel, don't blame your senior brother. When we saw the explosion, our hearts were lifted." Cyrilla flapped her wings desperately. "Next time, your own safety is the most important thing, do you hear me? Senior sister, when you say these words, please don't smile so sinisterly." Greet shuddered secretly. In order not to worry his teachers and senior brothers and sisters, he stiffened his neck and argued hard. "I won. 1 against 2, one was a level 12 swordsman and the other was a magician. I don't know what level he was, but he shouldn't be much lower than him. I killed both of them. No matter how strong he was, it shouldn't slip through casually, right? Tell me." The Lord of Thunder suddenly interrupted. Gretel quickly turned around and reported the battle. The Lord of Thunder listened silently, with no change in his expression, eyes, or breathing rhythm. But during his reporting process, he would make a faint comment from time to time. The combat ideas are too rigid. The beating was too cautious. Standing there, huddled in a turtle shell and being beaten is a joke. Improper combination of defensive magic. Never lose your sense of the outside world at any time. You should at least throw debuff spells at the enemy. Spider web. Grease. Ice wind. Can't think of any. Why don't you use teleportation to distance yourself? Keep moving, changing directions, and pulling away. That's how a mage should play." One sentence after another, Greet was shaved into pieces. After listening to all the battle proceedings, the flying carpet had floated over the battlefield and was patrolling low. The 2 senior brothers and sisters cast spells at will, collected all the enemy's remaining objects, and placed them in front of the teacher. The Lord of Thunder looked at them one by one, even the light golden arm bone presented by Gretel, and his expression became slightly brighter. "It's not too bad. If you practice more in the future, if you make one more of these mistakes, a real master with a lower level than you will kill you." "Gretel, why way?" The Lord of Thunder looked him up and down and finally relaxed and said. "This war is finally over. You contributed a lot, including the final legendary battle, and your ideas were used in several small places. In the past few days, think carefully about what rewards you need to help you. Let's advance to level 9 mage." Gretel let out a long sigh of relief. Just after relaxing, he immediately looked weird. "Teacher. I think I'm going to advance now. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 913. Are you going to advance now? The Lord of Thunder looked deeply at this youngest disciple. Greet's shoulders were slightly drawn in, his neck was stiff, and his whole figure seemed to be shrinking into a ball as much as possible, and it seemed that he would jump up if he was touched. Why are you so nervous? Do I still feel that I have been criticized, I have lost face, and I am angry and blaming you? The Lord of Thunder was half angry, half amused. He lowered his eyes slightly to cover these fleeting thoughts, and said calmly, "Oh, I need to advance. Then let's go here. No, move a little bit, there was a battle here just now, and the elements are a bit disordered." Halfway through, the flying carpet had automatically risen and floated into the distance. It passed one hilltop, two hilltops, without stopping, as if the teacher was not satisfied with the elemental environment below. Gretel has been sitting stiffly on the flying carpet, trying hard to expand his perception and choose a place where the elements are more balanced and stable, suitable for his advancement. However, Sarala whispered from the side. "Don't you have to go to the Mage Tower?" "Mage Tower?" "No need." Regarding Sarala, the Lord of Thunder's voice was a little softer and a little more patient. To advance from level 8 to level 9, you need to face the world directly and resonate with the whole world to the maximum extent. When you stay in the Mage Tower at this time, the first thing that resonates with you is the Mage Tower, and what you absorb is also filtered and integrated by the Mage Tower. Elements, but restricted his path. Oh. The Silver Dragon girl looked over at Gretel's face, feeling slightly pleased. "I thought it was far away." "Far?" The Lord of Thunder smiled. "It's only 100 or 200 miles from here to the royal capital. If he takes Gretel and speeds up the flight, it won't take long at all. If you are really in a hurry, you can take Gretel into your own demi-plane, activate the teleportation spell, and be able to cross over in an instant. If it's still not enough, if Gretel advances in his demi-plane, will there be a lack of power to absorb? It's not like Sarala herself has not had the experience of unfolding her true body, absorbing elements for Gretel, and acting as the elemental pool of the Mage Tower. You don't have to help him this time." Thinking of this, the Lord of Thunder gave an additional instruction. "It doesn't matter if the time is longer. It's best not to interfere with the resonance with the world. Don't worry, I'll watch. There won't be any problems." Sarala nodded obediently. Gretel suddenly said, "I think it's good here." The flying carpet stopped. The Lord of Thunder glanced at Gretel in confusion, let go of his senses, and turned slightly. In his opinion, the elements on the mountain below are not too abundant, nor are they too active. Of course, in terms of balance, it is just average. However, if Greet thinks it's good, then it's good. The flying carpet stopped, and Gretel jumped down without the help of the teacher. The feather falling technique was activated, and it swayed down to the ground and fell into an open space on the top of the mountain. Without thinking, I found a rock and sat on it. There are 20 or 30 rocks, high and low, large and small, arranged around the open space to form a stone ring. The Lord of Thunder has been paying attention to Gretel's movements. Seeing this circle of stone rings, I couldn't help but take a deep breath and exhale again. So was Greet's choice of this place influenced by the order of the god of nature? Was it the aura of the god of nature that attracted him to this place? After working on it for a long time, the person he wants to advance to is not a mage, but a priest? A little funny for a moment, but also a little upset, the Lord of Thunder shook his head and moved the flying carpet back a little further. Falling to the ground, he set out the tables, chairs, and tea sets, minding his own business, and only used his mental power to focus on one point from afar. In the middle of the stone ring, soft but clear fluctuations have spread. Like seeds sprouting, like new shoots sprouting green, like the spring breeze blowing, the mountains and forests are covered with spring clothes one by one. It was as if he was not alone, but the entire forest was resonating and growing with him. Teacher, this. Archmage Baebo couldn't help but speak out. The Lord of Thunder shook his head gently. It's okay. Just wait and see. He sorted through the research, papers published, and things Greed had done during this period, and pondered it calmly. To be honest, Greed has stayed at level 8 for quite a long time, more than a year. Of course, this is quite long and is compared with Gretel himself. Generally speaking, most magicians stay at this level for 7 to 8 to 10 years. There are many people who are stuck here their entire lives. His own direct disciples are generally selected based on the criteria of perspective to advance to legend. Even so, it is not unusual to wait for 5 or 6 years at levels 8 to 9, depending on accumulation and opportunity. Of course, the results that Greed achieved in more than a year would have taken several years for anyone else. After enough accumulation, when the time comes to advance, it won't be surprising if something happens. Just watch. The Lord of Thunder slowly poured himself half a cup of coffee, pulled out a ball of milk with a flick of his hand, and began to froth the milk. The milk swirled rapidly, creating dense bubbles little by little. Just when I was about to pour it into the coffee, a green leaf swayed and floated into the cup. The Lord of Thunder stared at the new leaf and remained silent for a long time. Next to him, Archmage Philby made a sound and laughed. It seems that little Greed has advanced smoothly. The moment Greed took his seat, he had already fallen into meditation, or in other words, into a dialogue with the world. The wind rustled around him, and the tall oak, beech, and holly shook their dark green leaves to welcome him. Below the trees, shrubs that are half a man tall are about to wither or shrink in strength, and wild grasses are preparing to survive the winter. Their grass spikes are hanging low to express a vague respect. Birds spread their wings, squirrels jumped, wild mice hurriedly gathered up grains and dived into their holes, centipedes, snakes, and insects crawled away in panic under the fallen leaves. The entire mountains and forests, the entire world, surround and echo the children of nature. Gretel took a deep breath. He looked around and found a particularly wide and smooth-lying cow stone, and lay down on it. He stretched his limbs and closed his eyes comfortably. No thoughts, no memories, no thoughts, no thoughts. Don't think about the elements, nature, or the identity of the traveler, just follow your intuition, expand your perception, and integrate into the world. Just like when I was in Iolan, I fully mobilized the vegetation in the land of inheritance, but there was less anger. Just like when fighting Old Morgan, when fighting the two enemies just now, he blended into nature, listened to the sounds of nature, and became less vigilant. Like a baby sleeping in its mother's arms, like a fish drifting and swaying with the waves. It turns out that he himself is also a part of the world. In the dark, deep, or rather ignorant perception, a little light lit up. A little bit of shimmer. It's like the morning light illuminating the night, and like the seeds sprouting new shoots. Soft and childish, yet tough and strong. Sprouting leaves, pushing away soil, pushing away rocks. On the upper side, the leaves are spread out to receive sunlight, on the lower side, the rhizomes are extended to absorb rain, dew, and minerals. It circulates in the body and builds a solid body, rising inch by inch and foot by foot. Animals, plants, insects, soil, moisture, sunlight. It's not enough. Gretel thought to himself. Sunlight shines on the ground, bringing energy, temperature, and atmospheric circulation and ocean currents, and atmospheric circulation and ocean currents connect places thousands of miles away. Just like this year without summer, a volcanic eruption thousands of miles away affected the Kingdom of Kent, the Old World, and at least the New World in the Northern Hemisphere. When this thought arose, the whole world suddenly expanded. It reaches the flowing clouds at the top and the Earth's crust at the bottom. It is pushed outwards from the middle and spreads out far away. In the sky, clouds roll and relax, the sun rises and sets, underground, everything grows, and the ocean currents are deep. The maps I had seen in the Parliament, every inch of land I had traveled through over the years, and the world maps that had been modified under the guidance of Golden Dragon Diamond, piece by piece, quietly emerged in the world of meditation. Reflect, connect. Fracture. Too far. With my mental power, even with the improvement and blessing of the world's will, I can't cover such a far place. Gretel promptly disconnected from the far distance. Shrink your mind and begin to sink into the world around you. The shape of every rock, every spray of a stream, every weed, every big tree, the many springs, summers, autumns, and winters spent. The trees are dense and swaying in the wind. The natural breath circulates silently, and those oak trees that have shrunk their strength and begun to spend the winter quietly burst out a new green leaf. Gretel, on the other hand, was immersed in the vast natural breath, letting them infiltrate his limbs and bones, and immersed himself in his own world of meditation. From the oak stick, from the place of inheritance, and from the mountain forest where he stands now, the endless knowledge, experience, and perceptions of his predecessors resonate with him. Finally, it was mixed into a question as high and far as Tongzhongdalu. What do you think this world is like? What should it be like? As I understand it now. Of course, my understanding of this world is not complete and needs more exploration and research in the dark, Greed replied in his heart. It should be a cyclic, balanced, and healthy world. It should be developed. Only development can solve more problems, and development depends on people's cognition and research. The mountains are vast and the world is silent. There was only more natural breath, silently, sinking into Gretel's body. Looking from a distance, the entire mountains are covered with a faint layer of green. Good guy, which brother of the sect is this, advanced here? A loud voice suddenly sounded in mid-air. A huge goshawk spread its wings and circled back and forth high in the sky, with a wingspan of at least 2 meters. Suddenly, it converged its wings, rushed down like a shooting star, landed straight next to the Lord of Thunder, and turned into an old man with a ruddy face. Is he your disciple? Little Gretel? Such a big movement. The Lord of Thunder turned his head silently, not wanting to answer a word. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to the Strong Sea Monster for the 5,000 starting coins reward.